Because in the minds of the majority of our people today, Africa is too far away. So the only way you and I can point them in that direction is build new bridges. We have to have the type of understanding of Africa and the type of understanding of our people here in order to build a bridge, a contact, a line of communication between the two. And once the lines of communication have been established and our African brothers can stretch forth their hands and reach us, and we can stretch forth our hands and reach them, why there's nothing that this blue-eyed man in this country will be able to do to you and me successfully from that day onward. I don't think when a man is being criminally treated that some criminal has the right to tell that man what tactics to use to get the criminal off his back. When a criminal starts misusing me, I am going to use whatever is necessary to get that criminal off my back. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices. When you have a philosophy or a gospel, I don't care whether it's a religious gospel, a political gospel, an economic gospel, or a social gospel. If it's not going to do something for you and me right here, right now, to hell with that gospel. So we have to have a new approach, a new appraisal.
Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on The Blueprint. And this week's show is called Honoring Malcolm. And I want also have a discussion about how do we honor our ancestors. And the ponderance surrounding Malcolm is only because his birthday is tomorrow. Today is May the 18th. His birthday is May the 19th. He was born on May 19th, 1925. And I know I've done a show on Malcolm before, and I don't like to retract or regurgitate some of the things that I've already done. And I've done this. I did something on Malcolm years back, probably maybe 5 years ago. But this show is going to be a little different from that one. That one was just talking about Malcolm and who he was. From his birth to his demise. But this is different. This is honoring Malcolm in a different way. This is honoring Malcolm within ourselves and asking ourselves, how do we honor any of our ancestors? Or do we honor our ancestors at all? Many of us have to ask these questions to ourselves, or ask these questions amongst ourselves about our community. How do we honor Malcolm? How have we honored Malcolm in the past? How have we been doing it? Or do we actually need to? These are questions I think that we should ask ourselves, especially when we're coming upon a birth date or a commemoration of something that this person has done or any of our ancestors have achieved. I think we should ask ourselves these questions. And I did a seminar, a panel discussion yesterday. I was part of a panel discussion done by Bubba Andar with the Pan-African Cultural Community Center. I'm guessing that would be one of the titles of our place over there on Martin Luther King here in San Antonio. He asked me to be on a panel to discuss Malcolm and honoring Malcolm. And I was with a brother, Terrence 3X, and Smokey, I believe his name is Keith Johnson. He has a television show. And it was us three as panel discussion panelists, and the narrator was my co-host on the John Kemp show was Jahi Osaze. And we had a nice little turnout. But I was thinking, how do we honor Malcolm? Now, I'm going to discuss some of the things that we had on the panel and in reflection. I don't believe in conjuring up spirits and by rituals and things like that. That's just not my belief system. I don't knock anyone who believes in doing those type of things. That's fine. I don't believe. I believe that we live within the spirits of our ancestors figuratively. the spirit that they have. And we have to get to know them to understand the spirit that they have. Whether I'm talking Marcus Garvey or Booker T. Washington or whatever, I have to understand what they were going through, how they were going through those things, and what they did in their lifetime to understand the spirit and the fight that they had. And this is what I'm talking about, the spirits of. Not some like riverboat incident in Alabama. You know, that's an instance, not a constant. You know, that could spark a constant, and I was hoping that something like that would spark a constant within our people. But those things basically have to be embedded in us. We have to embody the spirits of our ancestors and carry those things with us in how we act on a day-to-day basis with outsiders and insiders. And to me, this is what I think honoring any of our ancestors is about. You don't have to just have one person that you're picking, and even like the ancestors, I'm talking ancestors. I'm not talking about our martyrs or just our heroes, well-noted freedom fighters for our people, warriors. Just your ancestors within your family. How can you say I honor my great grandmother? Now, of course, you could just say, well, I go to school and I got this degree and I'm more successful and all of these things like this. But that's honoring anyone. That's an honor to anyone. But I'm saying if you want to pick out someone in particular or particular ancestors within your family and say, this is how I am honoring my grandfather. This is how I am honoring my grandfather. The only way you can do that is if you know who those people actually were, what they stood for, what they were about. And sometimes what they stood for may not be much, but you can honor them because sometimes their disposition and their lack of education and knowledge of things was imposed upon them, and you're going out to get that knowledge and seeking those and taking advantage of those freedoms can honor them in that way. You know, you just don't have to embody who they were or how they were, but you can expound upon that. But so my question would be, if I say, well, you know, how am I honoring my grandfather? There's a lot of things that I think about with my grandfathers, both of them, both grandfathers, that I may think about when I'm carrying myself. I'm not going to disrespect myself because I have elders. I have not just elders, but I have ancestors. And this is a way that we can think about things. This is something that you can transfer to youth. Who you were, have pride in who you were as your family or as a people, and let that reflect. But during this, this is not going to be a long show. During the discussion yesterday, we were asked questions on the panel, a lot of predisposed questions that we already knew were going to be asked. So a lot of us were prepared for the questions. I read the questions, but I didn't want to ponder on them too long. I wanted everything to be genuinely from my core. I didn't want to sit back and sit up and think about a lot of stuff. What I already knew about Malcolm or what I already felt about Malcolm was already there. So you can ask me a question off the bat. I don't have to see the questions you're going to ask. That's how I wanted to come across. I didn't want to have some long note that I'm reading from and talking about this discussion. But some of the questions I wanted to bring to the show. One of them was, how did Malcolm reflect masculinity and the responsibilities of being a man during his time? And I believe my answer I brought up something that Dr. Amos Wilson spoke on when he spoke on masculinity. He said masculinity is defined by the culture. Now, whatever culture you're in, that means that masculinity may be redefined later, or was you don't. It's not something that we traditionally hand down amongst cultures, because masculinity is going to change. At one point, we was hunters and gatherers. Masculinity at one point was being a good hunter or being able to feed your family. Now that hasn't changed as far as feeding your family, because then agricultural revolution happened and things, how you feed your family may have changed, but you still need to be able to feed your family. To me, going back to Malcolm, I think he redefined masculinity in America, in Black America, in the 1960s, when he was being exposed to most of America and blacks around the world, was his intellect. He not only took care of his family, but he took care of his family abroad. He took care of his community. He was about taking care of his people. He dedicated his life to take care of his people. And to me, that is a ultimate goal of masculinity. Being able to take care of yourself, being able to take care of your family, being able to take care of your community. And I think I referred to the Musa tribe, that African in the area of Kenya. Traditionally, to become a man, their passage from a boy to a man, or for a boy to become a man or a warrior, was to go out and kill a lion. The lion was the beast, the king of the beast, the biggest of the cats, the biggest of the predators on land in Africa. As a young boy, trying to become a man or to prove your manhood, you had to go out and slay the beast. And I only reference that because, to me, that has not changed with black people in Africa, the motherland, black people in the diasporas. The symbol of the lion may have changed, and it's continuing to change, but I believe that Malcolm time, that lion was racism, white supremacy. He set out to slay the beast, or to fight the beast, and use everything he had to fight the beast. Now, I thought about what the Musa tribe was doing. It's like, if you can defeat your fears, then you can fight any enemy on the horizon. I believe I posted something a couple of weeks ago, and some people questioned what I was saying. And it was like, when war is on the horizon, and it's basically inevitable, you can't dwell on the luxuries of life. You have to train for the battle that's coming, or you're going to lose the comforts of life. Many of us are too worried about the comforts of life when we should be preparing for the battles of life. And I believe that we are afraid of the battles because we think we may lose the luxuries and the comforts of life. If the battle is on the horizon, you have no time to worry about the comforts of life, because you're going to soon lose those comforts. You have to start preparing for the battles that's ahead, because that battle will determine whether you have those luxuries again, ever. I believe a man's responsibility and masculinity is to prepare and protect your family, your community, your people. And this is what I think Malcolm embodied. This is how I think he redefined masculinity, because he fought the lion, if you will, in a different manner. Because the lion didn't just come with brute force. And he told us if the lion come at us with brute force, then repel it with brute force. Defend yourself by any means necessary. Defend your family by any means necessary. Defend your community by any means necessary. And I think that Malcolm embodied this. Now, when I look around, I see this, some of those, the masculinity, the protection of one's family, the protection of one's community, from what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, the Black Family Unit was called a Black Survival Unit, which was under attack in many different ways, not just physical attack, psychological attack. They attack us through the media, what we see on TV. In every aspect of life, the Black Family Unit was under attack. So it is our responsibility as the provider and the protector of our families to understand that onslaught and to fight against it. This is what I think Malcolm embodied. The negative images that we will see as black people. This is how he was converted from being Malcolm Little to Malcolm X. He started learning. Someone opened his eyes that was in the Nation of Islam that, hey, this is what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us. Everything that they show us that's negative is black. The black cat, that's the one. He crossed your path. He's wicked. That's evilness. Devil's cake is black. The dark cake. Angel food cake is white. Everything was subliminal, psychological, that we were being bombarded with. So it opened his eyes, and that opened his mind. And he prepared for battle against a beast that was shown to him, that wasn't a beast that was just attacking them physically, that we all knew about at that time and before that time and at this time, but also the psychological beast, how that beast can conform and metamorphosize into different ways of attacking you. So you have to learn about those different attacks. And I understand what Malcolm, being the man that he became, he was able to talk to our oppressors on their platform. They never meant, they invited him on their platform, but they never meant to give him exposure. They meant to expose him. They thought that if they brought him on and they had some of their smartest and most eloquent teachers and speakers to challenge him, that they could break him apart in front of the whole nation and mainly make him look bad to us, which they tried on different levels to do, and many times they accomplished that, but it wasn't of them being able to break him down, because anytime they had him on TV and they were challenging him, he was able to take on that challenge, not react how they may have thought he would react it, and carry himself in a intellectually prestigious manner. Because when I look at Malcolm and what he embodied, he was not irrational. Some of the things they may label us with, you rattle them, they're going to get angry. You never saw him get angry when he was on TV talking to those that were wishing to expose him. Even when they brought one of us on as a puppet, unknowingly to the puppet, that they were being used as a puppet to oppose him because of the way that they looked, and they were being another black person. He was calculating. He was intellectual. He was fiery, and yet he was calm. He recognized the different ploys, and he would explain that ploy to us. Brother, they will bring on one of us to fight with one of us just to say it was one of us fighting with one of us. They will bring one of us or have one of us kill one of us just to say it was one of us that killed one of us, even though they were the ones pulling the trigger. They were the ones putting the knife in their hands of the other person that looked like us. He understood that. He didn't attack the person that was across from him. He explained what was happening. He shot down all of their little theories, all their little maneuvers, but not in an angry, aggressive way. What they saw of him, or what they thought he was, when they saw videos of him speaking in Harlem, oh, this guy, you know, he's going to be mad, he's going to act this way, and he was nothing but that when confronting the enemy. To me, when they say, well, who was Malcolm? I think this is one of the questions that they asked the panel. And my brothers that was on the panel with me, they gave eloquent description of Malcolm, and it's like, wow. I mean, I was listening, I was like in awe, and it's like, to me, it was simple. Because if I approached a young brother on the street and I wanted to tell him who Malcolm was, and I go into all this psychological stuff, and they're going to sit there and start blinking after a while and say, hey, yeah, okay. To me, I said in one word, Malcolm was empowerment. He personified empowerment. Inner and outer. Something that we all can learn from, that we all can keep with us. Something simple. When you give somebody a lot to carry, they're going to be, you know, I'm trying to sift through all this stuff that you gave me, and you keep it simple. That's something that you can expound upon at later times. When I say Malcolm was empowerment, this is what he personified. First of all, inner empowerment. He empowered himself. He allowed others to give him information to empower himself. He didn't go to our enemies to empower himself, because that's a facade. That's a placebo. Whatever they give you, they thinking you're empowering yourself. Oh, go to this school, get this degree, do all this. That's fine. That's not helping you empower your people. Because like I said, Malcolm was about us as a people. Not trying to make it in that man's world to become one of their doctors or lawyers and things like that, where they can control your actions. If you go too far and speak up too loudly, then they can take away what they gave you. They had nothing they could take away from him, because he wasn't asking anything of them. He was about self-empowerment. When you are self-empowered, then no one can take anything from you that they gave you. Or they have no control to take anything that you have built for yourself. He was about self-empowerment. Within himself first. Everything that I believe that he did was preparing for the battle. Was preparing for the battle on the horizon. He wasn't dwelling and relishing in the comforts of life that fame may bring to him, that notoriety may have brought to him. He was preparing for the battle. The books he read, the people he spoke with, the people he learned from, was all streamlined towards the training for the battle that we were going through as a people, and being a leader in that battle, being a speaker in that battle, trying to help train us for that battle, trying to detox us from the poisons that were in our mind and in our body that the battle has influenced us with. And everything on the outer, that on inside, that's what he was preparing for himself, and that's what he was trying to teach and give to us. He wasn't condescending in his speech whenever he spoke of us. He was very condescending when he spoke of white America and those that were trying to oppress us. This is what I noticed about Malcolm. This is what I noticed about those of us that try to talk to us, and they're talking in a very condescending manner, or they're attacking us. Now, I'm not going to say Malcolm didn't attack other black leaders. And at that point in his life, I believe he believed that that was the best thing to do. But I'm also not going to do that because he did it, because I don't see that as a positive thing. And I think later in his life, he saw that as not a positive thing unless they were acting with the hands of white supremacy that was detrimental to us. So he had to attack those that looked like us, that was misleading us. And to me, that may make sense. But to me, if I want to honor Malcolm, I'm going to learn from him, and not just learn from him as a slogan, any means necessary, by any means necessary. In the picture that they have painted of him to give to us, which has negative connotations to it, because they want us to think that Malcolm was just this violent person that taught violence. He was a very calculating, very intellectual, very cunning type person. And the only time he spoke of anything that seemed violent to them is when you are choosing to attack me. Then I am going to physically fight for my life. And this is what they were not prepared for. Like I said, when they had him on their media, they were trying to expose him, make him look like a lunatic, the way they do many of our leaders today, the way they did the Black Panther Party that followed him. They made us think that they were lunatics, that brothers just running around with shotguns and stuff and talking about kill Whitey and all this stuff like that. And that was very far from what they were about. They are a very structured organization that was preparing for the war on the horizon, the war that was happening in our communities anyway. But when you set forth, the war is already happening. It's when you step on the battlefield. I could say I am going to be on that battlefield, and I am going to prepare myself to be a soldier on that battlefield. If I'm going to prepare myself to be a soldier on that battlefield, once I step out and start talking consciously, socially, social consciousness about the ills that are happening to our people, then I become a soldier on that battlefield, and I am going to be under attack. I am going to be under attack by many of us. I am going to be under attack by many of them. I have to convince many of us that this war is happening. I have to be able to teach through conversation, not teach and say sit down and listen, but have conversation and engage. And I have to be willing to learn. Excuse me. I have to be willing to listen. I can't put everyone and treat everyone with like they're a cookie, like it's a cookie cutter, as if I already know what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and why you're going to say it. Even if I feel I have to listen, because I get into conversations with people and they think that I think a certain way. And they say, I know what you're going to say, this, and this. I'm like, no, you don't know what I'm going to say. Because I don't know what I'm going to say until I listen to what you're saying, and I maybe have to analyze it. Or I may not talk about what you're talking about. I may talk about why you're talking about what you're talking about. So you don't really know what I'm going to say. And some of the biggest battles is with some of us, even some of the intellectuals amongst us. That you may have great information, but your information is not facts. How you feel is not facts. I have to learn the difference between a theory and a fact, and a hypothesis and a law. And I don't mean legal law. But I mean, when someone's presenting something to you and it has been proven and you can calculate it, then that calculation becomes a law. Many times they will take a hypothesis, something that hasn't been proven, and we think this is what it is and this is how it was. And if you don't believe that, so we get into these little arguments before we even get to the meat of the conversation, because you want to argue about things that's irrelevant. And I'm saying it's irrelevant. It's relevant because that's probably why you think what you think. Whatever your background is, if you're religious, if you're spiritualist, if you're Afrocentric, if you're pro-black, all these things carry into a conversation that we have amongst each other. But if you're Afrocentric and this person is doing this, you're attacking the perimeter instead of getting to the core because of the belief issues that y'all don't have in common. And when actually we can get past all of that and talk about the actual issues. And we can actually make some type of leeway. Now, of course, when your belief system starts to interfere with the logic of something, then I'm going to say that's great. I understand why you believe what you believe, or why you're saying what you are saying. But I don't subscribe to that. So my angle of it is this. And we should be able to have a good conversation despite our differences. But this is how I honor Malcolm, because like I said, his characteristics was being an intellectual, being calculating, not being irrational, being very rational, being logical, and discussing matters with us. And also Malcolm was very humble. Malcolm gained exposure thinking and speaking a certain way, but as a man, we are mature. And he had no problem saying, well, maybe I was wrong then, and this is how I believe now. Or at that time, I believed that. I wasn't wrong for believing that because that's what I believed, and this is what was happening. Now I have grown, and this is how I'm going to be now. You're focusing on something as if someone approached me about things I said 5 years ago. I can defend it. I can say, well, this is how I was. This is what I believe. This is why I said what I said. And I can also say, well, right now, I've changed my stance on that because I gathered more information. That's a very humbling thing to do when you're in the spotlight of a nation or the world. And he could say, well, I said this about Martin Luther King. And he say, now I've probably grown and matured a little more, and I'm not going to say anything publicly about him. We have our differences, and that's growth. This is some things that we can transfer to ourselves. This is a way that we can honor Malcolm. I'm going to read some of your comments. I appreciate Ladae and showing up, and Aisha showing up, and Sakina. Greetings to you, sister. Walaikum assalam. And Sharon Simpson Anderson, she said, peace. I appreciate you showing up. And she said a great panel discussion yesterday. Appreciate that from Sharon Simpson Anderson. And I believe it was a pretty good panel discussion. Some of the questions, another one of the questions, it was, of course, like I said, the first one was about manhood. And to me, I think Mama Linda, the one that owns the establishment that we was at, she brought in about the women aspect of it. We have men on the panel talking about Malcolm, but women can learn from Malcolm too. Now the thing about, I think the main approach was about our young men. Malcolm being a male leader, and we need more male leaders in our society. So I think the focus was on the perspective of men. And some of the people that was in the panel in the narration, and Baba Under himself, we had a group together building the passage of young boys to men, we were discussing what we can do as far as going to the schools, going out in public teaching, or having them bring mothers with single mothers that need that big brother mentality of how we can help our young men transform into becoming as established men in our society, these young boys turning them to men. Everyone on that panel, I realized that when I was like, well, everybody here was the same ones we used to have our Saturday discussions with. I I think that that was surrounding intent of targeting our boys to learn about Malcolm. But what I was getting at, when Mama Linda stood up and she said, what about our young women? And I think it's important for our young women or our elder women to understand Malcolm, understand what he embodied. A lot of our women, they say our women are the first teachers, but see, your kindergarten teacher, she may be your first school teacher, but she is not that important when it gets higher up. You know, and the mother is very important to that child being the first teacher. But at one point, that young boy starts to break away. Many of them break away from her skirt. And now you're not able to teach them or corral them like you used to do. Now the streets are calling. Now some young girls' skirts are calling. Whatever is out there. And it takes a man now to understand what he is feeling and what he is going through. So yes, I do believe that the women need to learn and study Malcolm as well. His characteristics, his mannerisms, how he carried himself. And if you can embody that into that boy when you don't have that father figure, or when you're a young woman, you should know what to recognize in a man that you should want. That's going to help that family survival unit, that black family survival unit that's constantly under attack. You should be able to look at your man and discern right from wrong and what his actions are. So I believe that it is important for our young women to understand Malcolm as far as being a masculine and healthy male figure in our community, because we need more of them. If you look around, in the beginning I asked, do we honor Malcolm? Do we honor our ancestors? How do we do it? Have we done it, and do we need to? When we look around at what's happening in our community, yes, we need to. We don't need a bunch of people out there trying to go to that extreme, but we need people to embody those characteristics. Because a lot of times our young men are irrational. Sometimes they can't corral their anger, their frustration. Their frustration is being used against them. Sometimes you have to direct that energy up and building yourself. And this is what I think is important for our young women to learn about Malcolm, because they are teachers also, and a lot of them are the teachers, the soul teachers of our young boys. But they should also be able to see that in us. And another question says, how can today's youth learn from Malcolm's journey? Self-education, discipline, and his purpose. And I thought that was a great question that we need to ask. How can we teach? What difference does it make to know anything about Malcolm if you're not going to try to learn from that or use that or use anybody, like I said, any ancestor? And I thought about Malcolm's journey to who he was. And I said almost everyone in our community is at a stage that they can be in tune with Malcolm at a certain stage. We have people that's in the streets. Malcolm was in the streets. We have people that lost a parent or don't know their father. Malcolm lost his father at a young age. A lot of young people that have single parent households where the mother is not that great of a parent. Malcolm's mother went basically crazy. Malcolm was in foster care, foster home to foster home. You can relate. Some of us can relate to that. Some of us can't. Some of us had a better upbringing than that. And yet we haven't done as much as he has done with that. Others have those type of upbringings and they are throwing their hands up. They're, well, this is my predicament. That was his predicament. Malcolm was in prison. That's where he turned his life around at, in prison. And I'm saying he turned his life around, and you could say, well, the Nation of Islam approached him, but see, you have to listen. Because they are approaching people every day. And some people listen, some people half listen, and some people don't listen at all. So it's up to you to listen to the messages and not just listen to it and then empower and embody yourself with knowledge. Knowledge of self. Malcolm could talk to us about our history. He can also talk to us about what's happening in the world. This was something that many of our other leaders here in America wasn't that astute on, was not able to talk to us about what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in the Middle East at this moment. And a lot of the information that we think we can talk about, we get from the news. And the news is controlling the narrative of how they want us to think. But he wasn't like that. So there's a lot that we could transfer about Malcolm's journey, that we could transfer to our youth if we understand or learn how. This is probably the biggest obstacle, learning how. We have a lot of great ancestors, but just talking about them is not going to transfer anything. Sometimes, and this is what I thought about, a lot of things I do, and I can relate or refer that to what I learned from my ancestor. Instead of trying to take the credit for myself, when somebody say, or a young dude say, man, you all about this boxing stuff, or you all about this training, this training, that training. And it's not me. This is what I learned from our ancestors. This is what I learned from the Black Panther Party. This is not just a party. I could name the individuals. I could name individuals, and that would give it more credence. Not that they're the ones that invented it, but this is where I learned about it from. Our youth are learning things from rappers and R&B singers and TV shows showing our destruction. Then we wonder why they're going out being destructive with each other. So we have to learn how to transfer some of those characteristics. Like I said, that I don't care if it's your great grandfather. If you don't know him, then you're not going to be able to transfer anything. If it's someone else that you have to put in that place to say, this is where I learned something from, or this is the strong sister that I'm embodying at this time, or whatever it is that you're getting from different people, you can attribute that to someone. You can attribute that. When my mom taught me, my dad made me read, and this made me read about Malcolm or whatever. You have to transfer what you got from the elders to the youth, what you get from the ancestors to the youth. And this will solve many of our problems and our predicaments in our community. Our culture is failing. And when I'm saying our culture is failing, I'm saying our culture is failing our people. Our culture is creating destruction. Our culture is allowing others to invade our community with destruction. So our kids are nursing on destructive behavior. And they're growing up with this behavior in our communities. And now the world is looking at us. We are looking at each other in a certain way. My biggest threat is not the man. My biggest threat is that brother down the street, that brother from that other neighborhood. This is the mindset that we are growing up with in our communities. The mindset that we had in our community when I was growing up. Territorial. Carving out your territory, and nobody from that other territory come over here. It's an issue. It's confrontation. We're not building with each other. We're destroying each other. And if I look at Malcolm's journey, back to the question, how can his journey affect today's youth? Looking at everything that Malcolm went through, Malcolm had discipline. We always talk about And the crazy part, we talk about discipline or the lack thereof amongst our young people, but we have a lack of discipline amongst our elders. They have to learn from us. We have to be that example. We should be learning from our ancestors that had that type of discipline. When somebody say, hey, this is on, I don't watch that anymore. I thought you liked that. And let me tell you why I don't. I didn't recognize until I took a step back that this is all this series is about. Showing black people in a negative manner. Showing a husband cheating on his wife, dealing in drugs. Showing a comedy where the black man is being a buffoon and a con artist. That takes a discipline to take away to not a self-discipline. When nobody's imposing that upon me, I have to impose and look in the mirror at the things that I'm ingesting. And when I start to ingest it, I start to digest it. And when I digest it, it gets into my mind, my body, and sometimes my soul. The things I digest or ingest on social media. Now, people say, well, Kevin, I seen you post stuff, man. And I tell you, and realistically, I say, if you tell me that, I'll tell you the reason. And it's a well-calculated reason for that. I understand the algorithms of social media. I understand the algorithms of Facebook and whatever. So I know if I'm posting something that may be funny to people, entertaining to people, they're interacting with it, they're commenting on it, you're likely to see more and more of my posts. What I do on my Sunday afternoon is what I'm really about. Some of the other stuff is just to get your attention. Once people comment, once people like, once people share, then the algorithms is going to say these people are going to see more and more of what you do and what I post. So sometime if I feel like I'm giving something that's healthy, a vitamin, I have to make it a Flintstone chewable vitamin. I have to put sugar in there on the medicine that I'm really wanting to give to my people. Because my core is about having a blueprint to save our people, to prepare our people for a battle. And I got that from Malcolm. This is how I honor what Malcolm has done. I don't want to have a show about popping balloons. I don't want to have a rap show. I don't want to have a gossip show. I want to have a blueprint that's about you. Unfortunately, too many times it's about I'm the only one on here talking, and I love to have guests. Anyway, that is, I think, a major obstacle that we have is not just, we have to learn about our ancestors, whomever it is. Learn how to transfer the spirit of our ancestors to our youth. Transfer the characteristics, but you have to teach them. Sometimes they might not even know that looking at the blueprint or having a discussion with me has anything to do with Malcolm X. He may not even be brought up. But that's who inspired me to learn. One of the many that inspired me to learn. He inspired me to learn about Patrice Lumumba. He said that was the most powerful black man in Africa. I'm like, I got to know who this is. Then you go to Stevie Biko. You start learning. So you don't stop learning. That's how Malcolm has affected me. He had no intent on affecting me like that. And some people may do something by hearing you talk about something, and you have no idea how that seed that you planted is going to blossom someplace else. So I think it is imperative for each and every one of us that want to honor any of our ancestors to embody some of what they have brought to you or what they sparked your interest with. We have to carry that around in us. I had a question during from the audience yesterday. they took the questions at the end from the audience, and the brother asked us, he said, how do we think Malcolm will be reacting to the revolution that's happening here in Africa with Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso, the things that those leaders in Africa are doing. And and my thing is, the way I reflect on Malcolm is he would always try to show us how that would translate to us. How things happening in Vietnam or Korea, how that can affect us or what we could learn from it, good or bad. And I believe maybe Malcolm would be like, yeah, the way they're kicking the French out, we need to kick people out of our communities. That's not us. That's don't care about us. The same thing they're doing in a macrocosm, we could be doing in a microcosm here. That's how I think Malcolm approach to those type of things are. Get people out of your community that has no interest in your people. Don't shop at places that don't have an interest for your people. Don't patronize businesses or patronize businesses on your television that don't have your best interest in mind. That's what I think Malcolm has taught me to reflect. So my question to that brother that asked that question, I sought him out after the discussion was over with, and I told him, more importantly, is from what you know of Malcolm and what you learn of Malcolm, because evidently he has some kind of affinity for Malcolm because you was at that presentation to hear other people talk about Malcolm and to learn more about Malcolm from other people's perspective. So you have an affinity for Malcolm, and you must have been influenced by Malcolm. What has Malcolm's influence made you think about what's happening in Africa with Ibrahim Traore, or what's happening in Burkina Faso? How does that, Malcolm, affect how you see those things? And you should be discussing those things with other brothers. I mean, you could say what Malcolm thought, but Malcolm's not here. We are here. How are you going to transfer that to something for us to learn about? Or should we back it, or how we should use it to our benefit? That's more important than what Malcolm would have thought about it. What has Malcolm taught you to think about it? How was his influence affected how you react and respond to anything? That's how I think we should honor our ancestors. You got to be who you are. And a lot of times who you are, your makeup, is what you are exposed to. A lot of us are not exposed to what's happening with Faso or Traore over there. A lot of us only think about at home, and that's fine. That's not for everyone to do. But if you're concentrated at home, then build your home and make your home the best home you can have. If you're worried about your community, get with other people in your community. You're not going to be a dictator in our community. Others will not allow you to, unless you are just that good of a person that everybody want to follow your lead. And you go out into the world and you find that that's not so, then you have to be able to interact and build with people that don't talk the same way you talk or believe the same way you believe. We all got to transfer the spirit of our ancestors to our youth. And I'm not talking about, you could transfer, this is outside of the guidelines of religion. Because if you just keep it to your religion, then you're just putting yourself in a cage. Go out and learn about Confucius. Go out and learn about Lao Tzu. Go out and learn about Sun Tzu. Go out and learn about Socrates or Aristotle. Learn about Imhotep. Learn about anything that you can that's going to help you. If you only isolate yourself to a certain part of the world, a certain part of existence, then you're limiting yourself when there's a buffet out there for you to feed on. So this is what I want to transfer. This is how I think we can honor Malcolm. First, we have to learn. And if you don't know enough, find someone that knows enough. And let's discuss Malcolm around his birthday time. We honor Martin Luther King by going to a march. From my perspective, the march has nothing to do with Martin Luther King. Very little was said about Black Lives Mattering in a time that was at the height of our social discussions, protests, and things like that. I believe that the powers that be have hijacked our Martin Luther King Day celebrations. They hijacked Malcolm, Martin, Huey, Angela, Assata. They hijacked those images and they told us who they were. And they've hidden others from us. The ones that we were going to be disposed, that was going to be disposed to us at our disposal, that we can find out about, and they can't stop us. They control how we see them. It's up for our teachers and our elders today to show who they really were, to show what their spirit was about. We should have more people putting out movies about our heroes so that we can learn. If media is the main way that we're learning. However our children are learning, then you have to reach them on their grounds. I can't go out to a kid and hand him the autobiography of Malcolm X. They asked us what books will we recommend, or what book do we recommend when we want to teach someone about Malcolm. Unanimously, it was the autobiography. There's other books where he's talking about Black America and all these things like that. But that book, you will learn all of that by the autobiography. If I handed that book to an eighth grader, 9 times out of 10, many of our 8th graders are not going to read through that whole book. This is a microwave society. Everything has to be instantaneous. They would rather see a documentary on it than sit up and read it. Whatever you feel is right or wrong about that, if that's how they prefer to learn, then that's what we need to do. If they prefer to learn through a movie, then we have to create movies that capture their interest and lasso their time. So we as adults have that challenge if we want to pass on information and knowledge, even amongst each other. It's not a pissing contest about what I know and what you know. It should be a building contest. Or not a contest at all, just a building interaction. Too many times it's somebody that say, well, I feel like I know this, and they want to bombard you with what they feel like they know and tell you how you're wrong. That's not a humbling way to have a discussion with anyone. You should be learning you should be seeking to be understood only after you seek to understand. And this is what I think will help our conversations. I appreciate a lot of y'all that showed up, everyone that showed up. Sharon said, yes, the city has taken over the march. We have little to do with it now, and the money. And I think only thing we could do, and this is commemorating Martin Luther King going to the march. Many of us think, well, I'm going to the march. That's how I celebrate Martin Luther King. And I think many of that is misguided. I think Martin Luther King was not just about going to a fashion show or going to where everybody's at to mingle. I think Martin Luther King dedicated his life to, same way Malcolm did, to our community. for freedom and justice. So whatever it is that you're going to the march for, what's happening there that is trying to empower freedom, justice, and equality amongst our people? This is the things that we have to ask ourselves. If not, you're making a mockery out of that person's legacy. He was about grassroots, about all the things that's going on that we are fussing and groaning and moaning about. That should be our fight. If you're going to learn from any of our ancestors, they were fighting the injustices of their day, and they are fighting them for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, when they are no longer going to be here. They were trying to create a better atmosphere, a better future for our kids. Nothing that's happening, as far as I'm concerned, at that march is doing that. It's a bunch of food, it's a bunch of music, it's a bunch of celebrating, dancing. And to me, that's the luxuries of life when war is on the horizon. There's a battlefield going on right now. We can go and fight the battle, or we could sit back, eat chicken on a stick, and drink beverages of our choice, dance, meet, mingle, and listen to music and say, I had a good time. I don't think that's what Martin was about. But that's me. I appreciate everyone that showed up. Hopefully I'll have a better show with y'all for y'all next week. I do want to discuss the Nottoway plantation burning that happened a few days ago. Hopefully I could get somebody to come on that visited a plantation with me this year. And maybe they'll come on over the phone and we'll have that discussion. But I have a different perspective on some of the stuff that I'm hearing about that. So I do want to talk about that. Peace. Kevin Lewis on The Blueprint. I appreciate everyone that showed up.